Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a CastBox original produced in partnership with our friends at Studio 71. CastBox is the fastest growing, highest rated podcast app on both iOS and Android, and all of your favorite podcasts are there, ripe for the downloading. Sacred Symbols is available wherever you get your podcasts, of course, but we hope you'll give CastBox a shot. We think it's pretty rad. To get each episode of Sacred Symbols 3 days before the public, completely ad-free, please consider supporting the show on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. Perks for support include not only getting the show early and ad-free, but you can also gain access to monthly exclusive podcasts. And supporting on Patreon is the only way to get your listener mail read on the air, and much more. Plus, supporting Sacred Symbols on Patreon also nets you perks for other Colin's Last Stand shows automatically, including the nostalgia and retro podcast Knockback, the YouTube series dedicated to gaming called SideQuest, and the eclectic interview podcast Fireside Chats. Thank you for your generosity, kindness, and support. Without you, Sacred Symbols and all things Colin's Last Stand would not exist. But enough of that. On to the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 30. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined, as always, by the maybe dying Chris Maldonado.
Yeah.
Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today?
I'm still not well somehow, inexplicably. It's been a week.
You sound a little bit more to me like a man. I was telling you before we started. You sound like a man.
Is that what a man sounds like?
Yeah, man.
Sickly.
Yeah, sickly and dying.
Sickly and dilapidated.
Yeah, exactly.
Like an
Hating
apartment complex.
Right, exactly. Like, well, not every apartment complex, but many. Like maybe in Chernobyl,
yeah,
you'd have some dilapidated apartment complexes like that. But well, what ails you?
I don't know. I think it's a sinus infection at this point because I'm not contagious, and it's been going on for a while. So I don't know. It's definitely not the flu anymore.
It's too bad that you're not contagious, though. You can just sneeze right in my mouth and put me out of my misery, perhaps. But alas, take me off this mortal coil, Chris Raygun. Well, I'm glad that you're here. We will maybe do a shorter episode today. Well, we'll see how it goes, but I don't want to keep you here. It seems like maybe you should be in bed.
Fine. It's all in the voice. That's the main thing. That's the thing that's bugging me. Well, I don't care about the fact that I could be dying. To me, it's like I'd rather just sound healthy.
Sure. Ashes to ashes, as the saying goes. So don't sweat it too much, but drink your water. I bought you a box of premium saltines per your request.
Yeah. I texted you in the car because I was like, oh my God, I haven't eaten. I'm sick. Could you get me something? He got me an individual thing of saltines, which I didn't know that they even sold.
Very fancy. Now, I will tell you that you requested two separate things that were a little surprising because they're fine. I actually like saltines. My dad was like obsessed with saltines when I was growing up, so I ate a lot of them, but you asked for either regular Lay's potato chips or saltines. Yeah, because probably the two blandest things.
Exactly. I'm not looking for anything like flavorful. I just need like basic sustenance.
Right. You're like a hunter-gatherer.
Exactly.
Well, they didn't eat saltines, of course, as a hunter-gatherer.
Bare necessities.
I'm reading a book right now called Sapiens.
Really?
Yeah, and it's about the hunter-gatherer, Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon lifestyles and stuff like that. Very interesting. Very interesting. The argument, the main thesis of the book, by the way, or at least one of them, I'm about halfway through it, is that people in the hunter-gatherer societies before the agricultural revolution were happier than we are today and lived more fulfilling lives.
I'm absolutely sure that's absolutely true.
I mean, we couldn't get any less happy in the 21st century, can we? That's a very negative episode. My God, this is starting off a very negative way. It's a very negative way.
I mean, hey, what are you going to do?
I guess we should do the show. For the uninitiated, this is a PlayStation podcast, Sacred Symbols. Chris and I do it every week. We make Tuesdays great again. If you want the episode, each episode, I should say, early, 3 days early, ad-free, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. Those perks allow you to submit questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to the show, which we are going to read plenty of today. It gives you exclusive access to these podcasts that only go up on Patreon. Again, ad-free early access. This spreads out to all the different shows I do, and there are a lot more that you can do over there. Now, Chris, we are driving towards 5,500 patrons on Colin's Last Stand slowly. Remember, that is the goal for those who listen to this on YouTube or want a video version of this. Once we reach that number, we will start recording on video the podcast as long as we maintain that. But since we did pass 5,000 subscribers, as we discussed last week, we will start doing Let's Plays next month. We'll do 1 or 2 a month, and I'm really excited about that because I think we should just probably dig into PSN games and really go crazy with them, which I think is going to be a lot of fun.
No, definitely.
So I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you all out there for your support, your kind and generous support on Patreon. It's essential. And even if you want to just give it $1 or $2 a month, which is totally awesome, totally acceptable, you can, in the words of Ron Popeil, set it and forget it. You know what I'm saying? Do you remember Ron Popeil?
No.
You don't remember Ron Popeil?
What is that? I've never even heard that name.
Ron Popeil was a gentleman who used to be on television. He probably still is somewhere. And he would sell the various like cooking devices in your kitchen, and one of them was like this, I don't know, it was like this crock pot type thing where you can do a lot of and the whole thing was set it and forget it. And they would have a crowd of people, in the infomercials, and he'd be like, set it, and they'd be like, and forget it. It would be very exciting. It would be very exciting and very enthusiastic.
I'm sure I've seen this person, but I'm shocked that you know him by name.
Never be shocked about how much television I watched as a youth. Remember, I grew up on that border. We had the internet in like 96 or something like that. I was born in 1984. So there was a time, and even then we weren't on the internet all the time until cable internet, which was in the early 2000s. So I saw Ron Popeil, who I'm looking up on my phone right now, with great regularity. Just absolute great regularity. Here, this is a great picture of him. Here, this is Ron Popeil.
I know that guy.
Yeah, see that?
Yeah, I've seen that man before.
Set it and forget it.
Set it and forget it. I definitely forgot it.
What is the Showtime standard rotisserie and barbecue oven? That was his shit. Ron Popeil's a millionaire. Kind of sexy for an older guy, too.
I disagree, but to each his own.
Well, fair enough. Now, Chris, there's a lot for us to get into today.
Yeah.
On Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, as we make Tuesdays great again. But before we do that, I did want to give a shout out. You put out a new episode of your own podcast, which is kind of sporadic. You don't often put out episodes of your podcast.
Yeah, no, it's designed specifically to fail.
It's called Snark Tank.
Yeah, the Snark Tank. It's a shoot the shit podcast. It's not really anything that it's literally something that I do anytime that I feel like doing it, because I think that's the way to keep it the most fun, especially when I'm doing this and like a bunch of other stuff, the channel. It's like, I don't need another consistent podcast.
Right. Who needs
too much? Who needs all that?
Who needs consistency in
their
life? Who needs predictability at all? Well, I'm really happy about it. Now, I want to know a little bit more about this gentleman, Tom Sweeney. We've talked about him in the past, I think, but
yeah.
I know he's your roommate, but what is the nature of this gentleman? Because he seems like a pretty funny character. Like, I might want to meet him one day, perhaps.
He's a funny individual made funnier by my very good editing. He's awful. He's a horrible person.
Oh.
But we share a living space, right. And I put up with it.
A domicile.
A domicile, if you will. I love that word.
It's a good word.
It's a really good word.
By the way, in your domicile, are you still dealing with any pests?
I've succumbed to the roaches at this point. They seem to, bugger off. No pun intended.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah. They seem to ignore me, and I ignore them, and it's a nice mutual thing. They threw away all my roach traps. My roommates, I don't know why. I had like a full case of like hundreds of roach traps, and they were like, "Oh, this must be garbage."
Sounds like a Tom Sweeney move. I don't know him, but I just wanted to say that.
It does sound like a Tom Sweeney move. It is.
All right, fair enough. Well, they did ignored like 5 or 6 asteroid collisions that wiped out almost all of the life on the planet multiple times. So naturally, they're going to ignore Chris Ray Gun as well. Now, Chris, over on Patreon, as I said, we get a lot of questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience. Every week, we put up a thread, Friday, noon Pacific time for the next week's episode, and anywhere between 75 and 150 people usually leave their comments and their thoughts. And Ryan Carrig wrote into us, and he asked a question that I thought would really get us deep down into something important that I know is really going to infuriate you a lot. He asks, is a corn dog a popsicle? Is a corn dog a popsicle? Ryan Carrig asks. Chris, how do you feel about that?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Corn dogs are not popsicles, but they are also abominations. I don't like corn dogs.
Yeah, corn dogs are a little weird.
They're not good at all to me. Like, I don't understand the appeal of it. I don't understand. Like, I've had them, and I just don't I'd rather just have a normal hot dog, like even off the street,
right,
than just a normal corn. I don't know. I don't get the appeal of them at all.
Yeah, I like hot dogs. I wasn't really a hot dog fan until I was an adult. I think we might have discussed this on the show. I'm like losing my mind, so I have no idea. And I must tell you that I once dropped a rotisserie chicken that I bought at Vons on the street.
You dropped it,
and it rolled out of the container. So maybe
20 flesh with contact with the outside pavement.
And I ate that shit.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you're probably stronger for it, honestly.
It was like one of those things. It was like, that Larry David gif where he's like kind of deciding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's so far away. Not all of it touched the street. I think it's all right. I washed it under the sink.
You're a braver person than I am. I'll say that.
Some might say I'm a lazier person as well. 42420 wrote into us. That's a very interesting name. Said, dear PSVR listeners of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, the PlayStation Store recently put out PSVR demo disc number 3. This demo includes both Astrobot and Superhot. It's a great way to check out 2 of the unit's best titles if you haven't already done so. That's very great, by the way, for, what is this, 42420? I appreciate that. For anyone looking for PSVR experiences, there is this demo disc, digital demo disc now, another one, that shows some of the new games, so you guys should check that out. That is a great PSA.
It's fascinating that there are digital demo discs as opposed to just the demos.
That's true.
That's kind of interesting to me that we've kept the weird nostalgic format of demo discs, despite the fact that it serves no purpose, actually.
It is a little weird because why wouldn't you just have, and I'm sure there are, I thought the rule was when PlayStation 4 was announced and came out that everything had to have a demo. I know that everything had to be available digitally, but I thought that was the idea because remember, demos were really rare on PS3. They were much more common on Xbox 360. So it is a little strange.
Were they really rare on PS3?
Yeah, like vast majority of games didn't have demos. Maybe like
that's interesting.
Big multiplayer games or something, yeah, but most games didn't have a demo.
Yeah, because back then I was on 360, and I remember back then there were a bunch of demos, and it was like actually pretty cool. And then I noticed that they were starting to slow down, and I was like, oh, this sucks as a trend. I didn't realize that was like actually uncommon on PS3.
It was uncommon on PS3. Do you remember on the original, I think it was the original Xbox, that the original Xbox arcade games came on a disc, that you had to buy a disc and then you used it to buy the digital version of the game or unlock it or something like that?
It was
some weird shit like that.
It was really weird.
Yeah. So we're moving forward. Yeah. Cooley Z, the man known or woman known as Cooley Z, wrote into us, Chris, said, Dear Colin and Chris, to follow up on your verdict regarding sour cream and onion flavored chips. And by the way, a reminder, the verdict is that they're horrifying. Now, we have some people that are upset about that.
Oh, yeah?
I've ignored all of those people. But some people are upset about that. He says, have you any thoughts on the fine Canadian delicacies that are ketchup and all-dressed flavored chips? I simply must know, and I know tens of other Canadian listeners must be curious about this as well. What is that? I think I've seen these when I've been in Canada.
Ketchup-flavored chips?
This doesn't disturb me as much as it should because I'm a big ketchup fan. I love ketchup.
Are you? I don't like it.
Oh, really?
I don't like it at all.
Oh, you don't like ketchup?
No, I don't put it on anything. It's just pasty tomatoes.
Oh, it's fantastic. When the Native Americans were cultivating tomatoes a long time ago, many hundreds of years ago, before Europe ever got their hands on it, right? I really feel like the rational end conclusion of that cultivation was a bottle of ketchup. Yeah, definitely. I love ketchup so much, Chris.
I know. There's a lot of people who I remember once I got fries at this fast food place, and I didn't get ketchup, and my friend's like, why didn't you get ketchup? How could you eat fries without ketchup? And it's like, because I like fries.
So you just like
French fries.
So you just like the potato with the salt and a little
I like
grease.
the food that I'm ordering, yes.
Okay.
I don't use French fries as an excuse to inhale ketchup.
It's a wonderful conduit. It's a very starchy conduit for all those things, but it's funny because different stores have different ketchups too, like different restaurants. Like McDonald's ketchup in the thing that you squeeze if you sit there and eat. And McDonald's, I haven't done this in years, but that's like the best. That ketchup fucking rules, dude.
That's the best ketchup?
That's the best. I love that ketchup.
I mean, hey.
But otherwise, I'm a Heinz man all the way. You know, go Heinz, USA all the way. You know what I'm saying? It's all horrible to me. I think it's, sometimes when there's too much ketchup on my plate, I stick my finger in the ketchup and I eat the rest of it.
I believe that entirely.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound at all.
I also do that with mayonnaise. Cooley, I don't know. I don't know anything about these chips, but ketchup sounds good all dressed. What is that?
I don't know. Like dressing?
Because it's in capitals. It's a proper noun, all dressed.
I don't like that. I don't even have time to figure out how I feel about that.
I went to Iceland once and they had Doritos, I think they were, named Cool American flavored Doritos. Cool American. I think that was what they were called.
That's interesting.
I think they might be Cool Ranch or something like that, Probably. But they call them something else there. Iceland was weird. Very weird place. Very, very weird
Did you go to Reykjavik?
Yeah, I stayed there for a week. Yeah. It felt like I was there for 3 months. Let's be honest. All right? I probably could have done 72 hours. Maybe 96. I still had access to my NHL hockey games that I was watching because the Islanders were making a playoff push. So I would just sit after the few days, I would just sit in Reykjavik and just watch hockey games.
Just watch hockey games.
I just hope that I can maybe one day leave, And I was able to get out. Now, Chris, let's move on to what we're playing.
Sure.
I want to start with you. You here have written on our planning document, Destiny 2 Forsaken. I also saw, I was watching one of your, I sneak up on you and spy on you once in a while.
Yeah.
And I was watching one of your Twitch streams. I don't have a Twitch login, so I can't ever say anything.
Yeah.
And it's probably for the best, really.
Yeah, probably, actually.
But I saw that you were also playing Halo. So you...
Yeah, I do that every now and then. But I've been getting back into Destiny 2 a lot. I don't know what compelled me to do that. I think my friends convinced me. They were like, hey, it's actually, things are slowing down. You're not going to be left in the dust anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, I might as well. And I'm enjoying it. It's nice to kind of come back to a game and be reminded that, this is actually better than I kind of remember it being. The solid foundation of that game is still really appealing to me. Like the basic gunplay, the traversal, it all feels really good.
I wonder if there's been a little bit of a resurgence, too, with the community now, like excitement and we're going to talk about it in the news with Bungie. Yeah. Obviously, last week we talked about it, that Bungie and Activision have split ways. Do you think that people are now like going back to celebrate this or something like that?
I kind of think so. I think there seems to be a bit more of a resurgence in that game. I think a lot of more people are talking about it now because it just feels a little bit more hopeful, I guess, now that they don't have to deal with this stuff. But I'm enjoying it. It's a nice little thing to get back into.
And you play with like a set group of people, or do you
Oh
play
no,
with randos?
I play by myself, which is something that I couldn't do with vanilla Destiny 1. Like I couldn't do it. Like that game bored me out of my mind. But this one I'm enjoying. I just like pop on a podcast, and it's a good relaxing game.
What podcast were you listening to when you were playing Destiny 2?
My
Forsaken?
own, because I was editing for. I was listening to make sure everything made sense.
You're so vain.
I am vain.
You probably think this podcast is about you. It's a Carly Simon reference, okay? It's a Carly Simon reference. No one cares about Carly Simon anymore. Remember when she sold that song's about someone?
Yeah.
And it was always this myth for decades who it was about, and then she sold it at auction for like charity or something.
She sold a song?
She told someone who the song was about at auction.
For
apparently.
money.
Yeah, for money.
That's hilarious.
Well, for someone else. So
That's why you don't explain your lyrics, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly.
You can always extort people for the meanings.
Exactly. Someone out there is wondering what Carly Simon's You're So Vain was about. Well, now someone knows. Someone knows. Chris, I've been playing more Far Cry Primal, which I platinumed. I put it away.
I saw your nephew or your cousin was making fun of you.
Oh, yeah. It was my nephew, my 12-year-old nephew, Declan, who listens to the show. And he had shit-talked me, as you guys can see on Twitter, asking me why I was playing Far Cry Primal. He was bullying me. He was online bullying me. This young man.
That's awesome.
This young man, all of 12 years old. But I ended up platinuming it. And I got to say, Chris, I think that game's really good. I like that game a lot. I thought it was fun. I don't think it's as good as like Far Cry 3 or 4.
Well,
I think it might be better than Far Cry 5, frankly.
Maybe. I didn't really get that sucked into 5.
It was
or 4 either, really. The 3 was really the only one that really kind of gripped me from beginning to end. And even at the end, it just fell apart at the end. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it did. Although 3 was special because obviously Far Cry and Crysis have a similar provenance. And Far Cry 3 was when it started feeling different than Crysis in a major way, I think. I know a lot of people like Far Cry 2 as well. That's some people's favorite game of all time. And then you have Far Cry Classic. But yeah, 3 and 4, I think, are special games. 5, the setting was cool and stuff. I just didn't find, I platinumed it, but I didn't find it as, of course I did, but I didn't find it as satisfying.
Yeah.
I am excited about that New Dawn game, though.
Yeah, it looks neat.
Yeah, it does. The other game that I plugged in, Chris, because I was like, what should I do? I was going on PSN. I was like, I have all these games. I have like 500 games in my library. I'm like, I don't really want to play any of these games. And I was going on the store, and then I was like, oh, yeah. So I emailed actually PR, Deep Silver PR, to talk about Metro Exodus. I've not heard back from them yet. And then I was like, you know what? I haven't played Metro in a long time. So I actually bought Metro Redux, which is Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light on PS4 together. It's $30, I think. And I started playing Metro 23 for the first time in a long time.
How's it finding you?
It's good. It's fun. It's so funny how games age, especially aesthetically and especially with AI and the intelligence of AI. Like that game's very predicated on stealth. And it's funny how like there's just a cone that's like right in front of the enemies that like they can't see you otherwise. Like you could stand like right next to them.
Yeah.
And just like be like right in their face, but like just a little bit off and they don't see you. But it's funny. There's a lot of like really cool production value in there. I think that game's a little underrated from a production standpoint because there's like tons of writing and conversation and like just ambient shit going on in the game, which I think is really cool. As everyone knows, or I think most people know, Metro 2033, Last Light, and Exodus are all based on this Russian post-apocalyptic novel by a guy named Dmitry Glukhovsky, I think his name is. I have the book on the shelf over there. The first one anyway. And it's a popular thing translated to many languages. It's funny too, though, that the game has spelling errors in it. And like, just don't you think they would have fixed that at some point? I guess not. But anyway, it's cool. I recommend, if people are interested in knowing where Metro Exodus came from, if you've not played those other games, these are fun. They're single player, somewhat linear shooters about people that live in the Metro underground, like the Moscow train stations, basically after a nuclear attack. It's very cool.
Yeah, I want to get back into it.
Yeah, so $30 investment for the 2 games. I don't know anything, but I would imagine that these will go on sale even right before Metro Exodus comes out, but maybe not. But anyway, that's what I've been playing. Kyle Urick wrote into us on Patreon like you guys can, said, hello, Colin and Chris. I wanted to say thanks for all the great content. I have been a fan since Beyond and joined the Patreon for Sacred Symbols, but I've discovered and really enjoyed Knockback as well. Thank you so much, Kyle. I appreciate your long-time support. My question is in regard to the recent discussion of the backlog. I have folders dedicated to backlogs on my PS4 and an ever-growing list on my phone to appease my OCD nature. With the big games coming soon, Resident Evil, Metro, Division 2, my list will only grow. How do you guys tackle your backlog? Do you dedicate time specifically for your list, or do you wait until you're in the mood for a specific game? Personally, I've been trying to make time to get through my list, but if the game isn't scratching that itch, I take it off the list and move on. Keep up the good work and best wishes in the new year. Thank you, Kyle, for your inquiry. Chris, how do you deal? Do you even have an active? I don't necessarily mean that you have a list that is written down.
Yeah.
You're psychotic, but you're not that crazy.
Yeah, no.
I am, of course. I have a list somewhere in here.
I'm sure you do.
And I am that psychotic. But how do you kind of chronicle and then work your way through your backlog? Because we all as gamers have a backlog, probably pretty extensive at this point of games.
It's really hard for me to get back into a game that I've put down. Like, I feel like some days I'll be like, oh, what do I want to play? And then I'll go through my backlog, and it really depends on the exact time of day, the mood I'm in, and whether or not a game is particularly, calling to me at that particular moment. Like recently I just put in Just Cause 4 again because I put that down for a little while, and I was like, I feel like messing around with this again. And I played it for a pretty good amount of time and had a good time, but it really was just a happenstance of the moment. Like, I just happened to be in a mood to play it. It's a lot harder for me to tackle games like The Witcher 3 or like even Metro or something that's a lot more juicy and like that I have to sink my teeth into for extended sessions. I feel like that's always going to be really hard for me to go back and play because I'm never sure how much time I have.
No, that's a great point.
My schedule is so sporadic.
Yeah, mine is too, and I really do have to restart games when I walk away from them. Yeah. That's what happened with Far Cry Primal. Like, if you look at my trophies, I got the platinum on like the 20th or the 19th of January, but I got the first trophy like literally 3 years before that. So I'm with you where if a game is kind of calling my name and I've not played it in some time, like Ni no Kuni 2 last year was a good example. I almost beat it. Like, I was in the last chapter and I was like, And now I know that if I ever want to beat that game, I have to do it all again. No. It's like a 40-hour investment.
Witcher 3 is the same thing with me. Like, yeah. I'm a couple hours into The Witcher 3, just a few, but I know already that like if I jump back into it, I'm going to be so beyond lost.
You have to really, I think this is to Kyle's point, I think you have to pay attention. I mean, everyone has to do what they have to do, but I think you have to pay attention to how it speaks to you at the time. Like, Metro was really speaking to me right now, and Far Cry Primal was really speaking to me. That's why I played it. And I actually think my brother and I, this is a little spoiler, I guess we'll release these soon, but we're going to do a knockback episode on BioShock during our next recording wave, and I'm going to go back and he's never played it, I'm super excited to hear what he has to say about it, but I'm going to go back and play through it again and platinum it on PS4 because I platinumed it on PS3. So that's like something I'm looking forward to. I'm familiar with it, and I'm going to go through that trial and tribulation again. But I think the other big thing about backlogs, Chris, is that you have to learn how to let go. And I've just let go of a bunch of shit. Like, there's just a bunch of games I'm never going to play. Like Cabela's Big Game Hunt 2015. I'm never going to play that. I got to let go of that,
Let go of the dream.
Farming Simulator, I'm never going to play that.
Why not?
I kind of want to. There's some of these games like Logging Simulator or like something like that where I'm like, I bet you there's something about this game. Because these are annualized games. Someone's making money on this.
Yeah.
It's not THQ Nordic. I don't think either. It's someone else. So we'll see how that all goes. But yeah, I think that's how we manage our backlogs. I feel bad for people that are too pressured by their backlogs. The second I started letting go of playing everything that came out, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey is one of those games I really want to play, but I just know it's probably not going to happen. I'm probably never going to play an Assassin's Creed game. Why would I when there's just all this other stuff that speaks to me? So my best advice, Chris, is follow your heart.
Yeah.
Wherever it might lead you.
That's a nice wholesome message.
Thank you. Should we get into the news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Chris, number one is a big one. This was probably the biggest news that came out last week, and I think we have much to discuss about it. But number one, publisher Electronic Arts has yet again canceled another Star Wars game, according to a report from website Kotaku. The report states that according to 3 separate sources, EA Vancouver's open-world Star Wars game has been canned. The game apparently entered development in late 2017 and absorbed some staff and assets from Visceral Games' canceled Star Wars game, the one helmed by Uncharted creator Amy Hennig. The game's codename was Orca, and the report notes that EA's desire for a quicker release is at the core of the cancellation. In other words, EA needs Star Wars games sooner than Orca would have been ready. To take its place, a smaller Star Wars game has apparently entered development and may be launched as quickly as late 2020. Now, Jason Schreier over at Kotaku notes what I've also heard, that this seems to maybe be coinciding with the launch of the consoles in 2020, or at least the PS5, but we'll see about that. So maybe it's a launch game, in other words. EA released a statement concerning the report, noting that, quote, "As a natural part of the creative process, the great work by our team in Vancouver continues and will evolve into future Star Wars content and games. We're fully committed to making more Star Wars games. We're very excited about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order from Respawn, and we'll share more about our new projects when the time is right." End quote. Disney and EA originally inked their publishing deal in 2013, giving EA and its studio exclusive rights to console, PC, and handheld Star Wars games, though the exact nature of the deal has never been disclosed. In that time, EA has published 2 Star Wars games of any note, Battlefront and Battlefront 2. Brian Lindquist wrote into us on Patreon for his first inquiry. We have a couple things to get through here. He said, "Hey fellas," or Colin and Silly Chris, if you like. That name's sticking, I think,
that's
a little bit.
Really unfortunate.
I'm writing in about the cancellation of EA's open world Star Wars game, the one that was reportedly using some of the assets created by Visceral for Amy Hennig's Can game. I guess my question is rather straightforward. What the actual fuck? The Star Wars section of EA's official website lists 5 games, 2 Battlefronts, 2 mobile games, and the Old Republic, the latter of which existed before the deal was signed. I grew up playing stellar Star Wars titles, the Jedi Knight games, Rogue Squadron and its sequels, TIE Fighter, KOTOR, Episode 1 Racer, the list goes on. How is it that such a powerful publisher could go more than 5 years without producing a single game worth picking up? I guess we can cross our fingers for Respawn's upcoming title, but still the track record sucks. Who would you like to see take over the publishing rights to Star Wars console games? And is this even a possibility given the Disney and EA deal? As always, thanks for all you do, and Chris, I hope you're feeling better. So this man knows.
Yeah, well, your hopes are dashed.
Well, let's get into this, I guess, step by step, Chris. How do you feel about this? I mean, what did you think about when you saw this? Because this was a huge surprise to me and really shows that Electronic Arts in some way, shape, or form has completely bungled its entire handling and wasted an enormous amount of time in this deal, which purportedly, we don't know the details, the raw details of the deal, purportedly is a 10-year deal. Inked in 2013, which means we have some time to go. We're about halfway through it. So
yeah.
What did you make of this story when you first saw it?
I mean, this whole thing's insane to me. Like, it's insane that when you compare the same amount of time that's passed from 2013 to now in the early 2000s, we had so many actually great Star Wars games. Like, I remember playing a lot of Star Wars Jedi Starfighter, which is like just some kind of flight sim on the original Xbox and PS2. But it was like, that was one of my favorite games on the console. And like, there's a bunch of, what was it, Force Unleashed?
Yep.
We had so many good games before this deal. And I can't think, like, even both Battlefronts have been phenomenal disappointments. It just kind of blows my mind. And I get that game development's way different now, and it's far more expensive to make a quality game now than it used to be. But at the same time, I can't help but feeling like somebody's really either dropping the ball, or either that or Disney just has so much money that they don't care.
It seems to me that they signed the deal that seemed to have made sense at the time. Right?
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of the Titanfall deal actually EA made with Microsoft, where people criticize that deal later because it's like, well, we can't play Titanfall on PS4. No one's really playing Xbox One at this time. But I'm like, well, they made the deal that seemed smart at the time. And so I don't necessarily begrudge anyone making the deal. It's just that like nothing interesting has come of it, because people have to remember that Star Wars 1313 was well on its way to being completed. I know people that worked on that game. And from what I heard and have heard over the years, and a lot of people have heard over the years, that game was shaping up to be something special, but they threw that game away. And then they, made Battlefront. They made Battlefront 2, which people enjoyed, sold many millions of copies, but very mediocre Metacritic scores, certainly tone deaf in its microtransactions. The campaign in the second one was terrible. The campaign in the first one, non-existent.
Yeah.
And we've really gotten to the point of the letter we just read, nothing else of any consequence. A couple of mobile or casual games. Their, ongoing Old Republic MMO that's existed for a very long time, long before the deal was inked, and probably actually the impetus behind the deal in the first place. But it frustrates me because it's not to say that Star Wars games were always great, right? We did grow up with bad Star Wars games too. Masters of Terrascasi on PS1, the fighting game was terrible. I remember buying that game on PC, Yoda Stories, in like 1997. That was horrible. Just a horrible game. So it's not like we always had great things, but to your point, we did, especially in the PC realm with Dark Forces and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, all these games, right? And Shadows of the Empire and N64 and Rogue Squadron, and there were a lot of good Star Wars games. And so that's the big shame, is that at a time when Star Wars is surging and people like it again, there was no complimentary video game celebration going on. It was just 4 movies that people like to argue about, but nothing. Like, I know EA and Disney entered the deal being like, we don't want to make games around the movies. But I'm like, I would have rather you done that than not release anything at all, than to cancel exciting games like you guys have canceled them. And the biggest thing and the most interesting thing about this, Chris, is that EA readily admits that they're still working on the Respawn game, so that game's coming, that there's probably a smaller title coming out of EA Vancouver, which we know based on the Kotaku report. And so it doesn't seem like Disney is going to pull the license. Maybe they're totally locked in. Maybe there is no kill clause in the contracts, but it's a real shame because they've wasted basically half the time.
Between EA and Disney, I think Disney would have the power to kill a deal like that if they really wanted to. I think what it comes down to is that they're already halfway through the deal. They're probably just going to ride it out, especially with Respawn coming out. I think the Respawn game probably could be pretty good. I have a decent amount of faith in Respawn, but also I think they're just rolling in so much money that it really probably doesn't faze them at all that this deal isn't really shaping up to really be anything of any consequence. It's Disney.
Yeah, it is. It's true, but it's disappointing in the sense that wasted time and energy.
Oh, it's
right?
It's
like you
definitely
can't get it
disappointing.
back. And it makes you wonder if Disney is okay with it. And this is really not gaming related, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but I'm a big Star Wars fan since I was a kid, and I liked Episode 7. I thought Episode 8 was pretty bad. I actually think Rogue One and Solo are great movies. Like, I really like those interstitial movies a lot, especially Rogue One. I think Rogue One's excellent. And it just seems like inconsistent decision-making at Disney, inconsistent decision-making in regard to the Star Wars IP, stretching way outside of the games, like with the killing of the extended universe and all of that kind of stuff. Like, they just haven't handled it very gracefully and very well, I think, for old school fans especially. And this was the time to strike. Like, now everyone's very sardonic about Star Wars. Now they're like very, they've canceled movies and no one believes that anything's going to be good, and I don't really blame them after Episode 8. And so they kind of almost lost their window in a way. And it goes to show you that these games still sold extraordinarily well regardless of that. Although Battlefront 2 really hurt them. And I did a video on this on my SideQuest YouTube channel about Star Wars and Disney and EA. And I was doing in that research, realizing that EA's stock lost 25% of its value in October. But they're slipping back up. And if you look at their long-term stock since they went public in like 91 or 92, it's like basically a straight line up. So it's not like they're dying. But trouble's a brewing there. And the disappointing thing to me is that Disney has an example in its Marvel imprint of how to do its games. And I'm not talking about just Spider-Man, because the easiest thing, Chris, for them to have done after Spider-Man's success, and after they realized probably 2 years ago that Spider-Man was going to be great, which I am sure they saw, is they could have been easily like, oh, these are our partners. Like, let's just give everything to Sony. But they didn't do that, right? They were like, okay, let's find the best partner for every game. And so they went to Team Ninja and Nintendo and are making Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 exclusively on Switch.
No, exactly.
That's
like
what you have to do.
Staying free from specific publishers is a good idea. Just going to individual teams.
Right.
That
Who's
you think
capable
can handle.
of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like EA isn't capable of
That's
making
what they used
these
to do, by the way.
Yes. Yes, of course. And it just would have worked out, I think, better for all parties involved, specifically the gamer. It's not like they have this anecdotal ancillary evidence that exists on the periphery for them. It's in their own family that this is happening. And that's kind of the most confusing part of all. Disney owns Marvel and Star Wars. So they're doing it right in one way and not doing it right in the other way. And that's the most frustrating part of all. Mason wrote into us and said, "Hi, Colin and Chris. I hope all is well and that Chris is recovering from his influenza." Well, you be the judge of that, I guess.
Yeah.
With yet another canceled Star Wars game from EA, do you believe Disney will reevaluate their contract and explore other developers? If the Star Wars game were being developed by a tenacious studio with a consistent track record, then it is safe to assume their success would benefit any other Star Wars projects, video game related or not, padding Disney executives' coffers with even more cash. In short, does Disney, from a financial perspective, care about the Star Wars IP, how the Star Wars IP is being used by EA, or in this case, not being used? As always, keep on sacrificing. To Chris's point, and I think Chris is right, like, I don't know that they might care because they are making money. But this is brand damaging stuff. Battlefront 2 was brand damaging to Star Wars video games and to EA and to their ability to put microtransactions in other games. Like, that had a trickle down effect that you don't often see. It wasn't like Mass Effect 3 when the ending was bad. That didn't affect EA at all. Like, that didn't affect EA's sales. But this actually is affecting EA. And for the first time, I'm wondering if gamers are having the testicular fortitude, really, to say, like, we don't want games from a certain publisher because of the way they've treated us or treated games in the past. We still have never really seen that.
I just don't think you're going to see Disney really pull anything or do anything unless anything that EA does actively damages the reputation of the mainline films. Like, to be completely honest, I think that's where their focus is, because that's what Star Wars ultimately is. It's a film franchise. I think that's where their focus is with Marvel. I think that's probably why they got the Marvel deal in the first place, because their focus is on the films and making these films like, okay, this needs to be very controlled. Let's give the Spider-Man license to Insomniac. That's fine. You know? But with Star Wars being so specific, and it's popular, but it's also niche in a weird way.
This is what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket. This should be a cautionary tale for anyone else controlling huge IP that they shouldn't go all in with a certain publisher. And I said in my video, I don't think Electronic Arts is a bad company. I don't think they're stupid. I just really think that this has been mismanaged. I mean, they make enormous amounts of money with other games, so it's not like they're completely inept. It's just that they're turning into this husk, you know, that isn't really very likable. EA used to be a really likable company to me. I used to be a big EA consumer, just tangentially. But now they don't speak to me.
How long ago, though?
Oh, like 10 years ago, probably, or more. I remember when we used to get
like original Dead Space, I would say.
Yeah, like Dead Space, Army of Two, like really weird games like that. Now, they still put out stuff like that. Unravel game, like they give a little wink and a nod, like A Way Out was a really popular game last year that they put out. Mm-hmm. Number 2, the future of Bungie and Destiny post Activision could be bright indeed. As you may recall, we discussed in last week's episode the fact that developer Bungie and publisher Activision have amicably parted ways only 2 games into their 4-game deal surrounding Destiny. And as is good for Bungie, the developer has managed to take the IP with it. In a letter posted to the audience on Bungie's official website, Destiny's director, Luke Smith, wrote that, quote, "In the short term, we're continuing to build the content we've promised for the annual pass," end quote, but that ultimately, quote, "long term, Bungie is committed to Destiny. We created the universe and we hold its future entirely in our hands. The vast majority of the team is hard at work envisioning future experiences, enemies, and ways to play the Guardians you've been building since 2014. We're going to keep doing that," end quote. He also gave thanks to the Activision-owned and affiliated teams like High Moon Studios and Vicarious Visions for their work on the Destiny franchise, outlined some more immediate content, and promised more information soon. Corey Burns wrote into us and said, "Hello, CNC Music Factory. What was their big song?
I don't know.
Wasn't it the ride? Did they do the song "Come On Ride the Train"? Was that them?
I don't think so. Was it?
I don't know. They did something that I remember. Clearly, actually, that's a lie. I don't remember it. With all of the negative news around Bethesda, Activision, and the like, do you think we are seeing the fall of AAA studios much like the fall of large games media sites? Much like your own success with Colin's Last Stand, it seems like indie developers are outmaneuvering these bigger publishers and giving gamers exactly what they want. Keep up the awesome work and don't let Chris go into the light. Man, everyone knows that you're sick and dying. Pretty incredible. We will do our best to keep Chris from the light.
I think it's pretty apparent from my voice, though, in fairness.
Now, I mean, you were playing, as we said earlier, you were playing Destiny 2 DLC, and this letter from Luke Smith seems quite optimistic. The interesting thing to me about it is that I thought that the NetEase $100... Let me back up. NetEase is a Chinese company that infused $100 million in capital for a minority stake in Bungie. This was done before Activision and Bungie walked away from each other. And my assumption was that this was enough of an infusion of capital that they wanted to invest in something new. But it seems like, according to Mr. Smith's message, that they're all in on Destiny. That's what NetEase invested the money in, presumably, and that most of the team is working on that. I'm sure another team is prototyping something or whatever. But how does that make you feel? Because I kind of was excited that Bungie would be unencumbered from this and could do something even newer. Now, I know that they're never going to make something for me because I would have a single-player shooter from them, and I know that that's not what they do and that's not what we're going to get. But how do you feel about their kind of insistence on working on Destiny? It sounds like our question from last week is already answered, that we're going to get more Destiny. Destiny 3 presumably is going to be a game that comes out.
I think it's a good thing. The thing is, Destiny's really their first multiplayer shooter. Like Halo had a strong multiplayer legacy, but it also had a very respected single player run for pretty much its entire run under their stewardship. But I think ultimately, if it's something that the team wants to do, then they should do it. And especially if they're unencumbered, if they don't have a publisher telling them, you have to do this, then I think it speaks volumes that they're willing to be like, okay, well, we don't have to do this. We could do something completely new, and we have enough clout and capital to probably do something new and entirely fresh. And it's very well possible that it would be a success. But we're gonna stick this out. I think it's entirely optimistic to me.
Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, if you're a Destiny fan, it's exciting. I think people are just excited to see Bungie out on their own again.
Yeah, I would like to see something new from them. I don't think it's all that unlikely that we might see something smaller. I think now that they have the freedom to kind of like put out something maybe Unravel-ish, I think that's also a possibility. They talked a while ago, while the Activision deal was either being forged or while it was just signed, that they were talking about possibly re-releasing or remaking their old Marathon shooters, which would be pretty sick because those are really old, but I love those games. You never played Marathon, right?
No.
It's a Mac shooter, so I don't blame you. But they were really solid games, and it would be cool to see those with like a new coat of paint. But
maybe that's what they're doing. I
mean,
small teams sprout out of bigger teams all the time to do all sorts of work. I mean, we saw that at Media Molecule back in the day with Tearaway on Vita, while Dreams was being built, and Dreams is still being built, so maybe that wasn't the smartest decision. But at the same time, it is nice to see these teams be more flexible. I, though, Chris, am still interested in if they stay truly independent. I don't know if they really do have the capital, as we said earlier, to publish a game. Publishing games, and I'm not talking about the manufacture of games, but just publishing a game, funding it, and being responsible for all of it. It's a lot of money. And Activision was absorbing those bills and absorbing a lot of that drama probably that is dealt with too with the first parties and getting your games out there. And I don't know if that's going to be as attractive to them as they might think. But as we've said in the past, it's attractive to other studios that are doing their thing out there. So we'll see. They're equipped to do it. They have a big staff.
Yeah, I think they can do it. And I think as egregious as the microtransactions have been, I know for a fact microtransactions make a lot of money.
They definitely do. Number 3, did Ubisoft drop the ball with its latest Assassin's Creed Odyssey DLC, Legacy of the First Blade, Shadow Heritage? According to some, they sure did, and the publisher has acknowledged the possible mistake. In the DLC, a relationship choice is essentially foisted upon the player, regardless of choices made previous, seemingly counteracting Ubisoft's promise of absolute freedom in regard to romantic choices. Odyssey's creative director, Jonathan Dumont, wrote on Ubisoft's forums that, quote, "It is clear we missed the mark," end quote, while explaining the intention of having made the decision on the design side. Quote, "We have read your responses online and taken them to heart. This has been a learning experience for us," end quote. In a separate statement to Kotaku, Ubisoft PR confirmed that the DLC won't be changed, regardless of the drama surrounding it, though a trophy will be renamed, that some have found offensive. I was jumping into this, so apparently, people can correct me, you can always write in and correct me, but apparently this has to do with the fact that you can pick either heterosexual or homosexual, I guess, relationships in the game, and that the DLC, in order to get to a specific endpoint, this specific relationship has to happen in a certain way. So regardless of the choices you make, this thing still happens. And some people are like bummed out about that, apparently.
All right.
So I wanted to acknowledge it. It's Assassin's Creed. I feel like I want to ignore stories all the time that I don't care about, but certainly someone out there cares about that story. So.
Yeah. Well, Assassin's Creed Odyssey was a big victory, a big resurgence for Assassin's Creed. So
it was.
I could see why people would be annoyed.
Did this start this year with Odyssey, or did the resurgence technically start last year with, was it Origins last year? People like that one too, right? Not as much though?
Not as much. I don't think so.
That was the Egyptian one?
That was the Egyptian one.
Yeah. I can't keep up with all this.
Yeah, it's too much. They took a year off, and it's still too much.
They've only taken 2 years off since 2007 on Assassin's Creed, which is fucking bonkers. Number 4. Death Stranding, the upcoming PS4 exclusive from Kojima Productions, is apparently in a state where the first 2 hours can be played and shown off. Word comes by way of Aki Saito, the head of marketing and communications at Kojima Productions, who tweeted that he and some others showed the first 2 hours of Death Stranding off to the Sony-owned team at Guerrilla, the studio behind the Killzone franchise and Horizon Zero Dawn. If that seems random, it kind of is until you think about this fact. Death Stranding is running on the Decima engine, which is Guerrilla's proprietary engine. However, Death Stranding still has no release date or even a window or year, and it's highly unlikely the game comes out in 2019. We have this letter from Jonah Newman, Chris, and you seem eager to talk about this.
Yeah.
It says, "Hey, Colin and Chris, was wondering your thoughts on the possibilities of Death Stranding actually being a 2019 game. Seems like there's been a lot of rumors and speculation about it lately, and with Kojima demoing the first 2 hours of the game to Guerrilla and others, now it's starting to seem like it's getting close. Even back in 2016, when Kojima first announced it, he said that Death Stranding will release before the year that Akira is set. Akira is the sci-fi novel that Kojima seems to be a fan of, and the novel takes place in the year 2019. There's also Troy Baker's recent 10-year challenge picture where he posted his character from Final Fantasy 13 back in 2009. That character's name was Snow, I think. And his character in Death Stranding as his 2019, which he captioned 2009 versus 2019 with a question mark. Seems like a lot of little hints. Just wondering your thoughts. Thanks. Love Sacred Symbols. Thanks for helping me get through my work week." Chris, what are your thoughts?
If he said that it would launch before the year that Akira is set, and Akira is set in 2019, then it would have released last year.
Right. That's what I was thinking too.
I don't think it's a 2019 game. I really don't. I think at most, maybe February 2020. Maybe.
I still even think that's early.
It's weird how much we've seen of it and for how long, and for it not to be obviously coming out this year. It's weird because Ghost of Tsushima we've seen very little of, and I'm pretty certain that's coming out this year.
Yeah, they haven't.
It's a very weird mix of scheduling and development. It's odd.
It's weird indeed, Chris, because they still haven't spoken, and we're talking about Sucker Punch, and Sony still haven't talked about Ghost of Tsushima. We make assumptions about that game too, similar to how we're making assumptions about The Last of Us Part 2, which is kind of what's so fun about being a PlayStation fan right now, because we don't actually have a lot of specifics. Outside of Days Gone, which we know comes out in late April, we don't have any dates for any games. We don't know what Dream's date is. We don't know what Ghost of Tsushima is, The Last of Us Part 2, Death Stranding. It's an interesting time if you're into being a PlayStation fan that doesn't know much, which is, frustrating sometimes, but still exciting, I think. For me, I just don't see how this timeline works. Just because they showed the first 2 hours of the game off doesn't mean the game is content complete, doesn't mean the game's even in alpha. And I just feel like we would hear more about it. I think that you have to remember, I used to make fun of on my old shows that Goofy's voice actor in Kingdom Hearts 3 once said that Kingdom Hearts 3 was coming out in 2016.
Yeah.
So no offense to Troy Baker. I know Troy Baker personally and consider him a friend. He's a good guy. He would certainly know a thing or two. But I don't know that he would be so crazy even as to leak that. He's one of the most experienced voice actors and mocap actors in the entire world.
I don't even think he knows, really. I assume the voice actors know a decent amount, but I imagine at that higher level where, decisions are still being made about releases and, what quarter, I don't know if they really know. They have probably, a ballpark window. But there's a reason why there's a question mark at the end of 2019 in that sense, because, they don't know.
Listen, I'd love to be wrong, but dollars to donuts, that game's not coming out this year. So I don't want everyone to get
dollars to donuts.
Dollars to donuts. I don't even know the etymology of that.
Yeah, I don't even.
But it's a real thing. Dollars to donuts is a real thing. I don't know.
I'll take your word for it.
I'm going to look it up. But I just don't see it. I just don't see the need for that game to come out this year, and I just don't see it based on Kojima's past that the game can be ready. This is a whole new team constructed using an entirely foreign engine to them, a proprietary Sony engine, building what seems to be a very ambitious game, a game that they keep showing off over and over again, therefore having to take resources away from building the game to make these demos and to make these, marketing coups and these marketing pushes. I don't know. I just don't see how it's possible. I just don't see it. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes out there. A lot of people are very bullish about this, but a lot of people were very bullish, frankly, that Death Stranding was coming out last year, and I had no idea what they thought that either. So,
a lot of people were bullish about Kingdom Hearts coming out 10 years ago.
Someone did point out to me that he was playing the game on a PS4 controller, and that doesn't surprise me a great deal.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Because I think the game is running on PS4. I just feel like it's a PS5 game too. And I still think that it would be an interesting launch game for PS5. So I think that we're possibly, I don't want to say possibly maybe is up to 2 years away from it coming out. Number 5. The first 8 characters that will appear on the Mortal Kombat 11 roster have been officially revealed. The characters are, and I put these in alphabetical order for no apparent reason.
I noticed that. What the heck?
Baraka, Garrus, who I think is a new character, Raiden, Scorpion, Shao Kahn, Scarlet, Sonya Blade, and Sub-Zero. IGN reports that there were 25 character slots shown, indicating that there are likely 17 more characters yet to be revealed for the core roster. Mortal Kombat 11 is slated to come to PS4 and elsewhere on April 23rd. Do you care about this? Mortal Kombat has never appealed to me, ever, except for when I was very little.
I'll admit, I'm not that big of a fighting game person, but I like watching Mortal Kombat more than I like watching other fighting games because it's just so hilariously gratuitous. It's entertaining just to see how creative they can get with how ridiculous the fatalities are. That's my thing about it, but I don't play it. You know, if somebody brings it over, I'll play it, but I'm not diehard. I don't know the lore of
Mortal Kombat.
You know.
I loved the original Mortal Kombat. I remember getting it for my birthday. I think it was in 1993 on SNES. I was in 4th grade, I think. And the SNES version was considered the bad version because the blood was replaced with like sweat splatter. And I didn't realize it came out so soon, April 23rd. It comes out the same week as Days Gone.
I'll definitely play it.
Number 6. Sony and Sony Bend have revealed pre-order bonuses for upcoming PS4 exclusive Days Gone, as well as the game's special editions. The standard edition of the game will get you just the game, but if you get the collector's edition, you'll get some bike skins, a theme, and the ability to unlock some in-game skills early, as well as some cloth patches and pins, decals, a steelbook, the game's soundtrack and art book, and a cool-looking statue of the game's protagonist with his bike. If you get the digital deluxe edition, you'll get the art book and soundtrack digitally and the other digital goods, like unlocks, but not the physical goods like stickers or the statue. Finally, pre-ordering any version of the game, digitally or at retail, will get you vouchers for some weapons and motorcycle upgrades and a dynamic theme for your PS4. Days Gone launches on April 26th.
Look at that.
Very exciting. Will Hahn wrote into us on Patreon, Chris, and says, "Hey, Colin and Chris, hope all is well. A recent trailer came out on January 18th for Days Gone. It looks to me like it's pretty well polished, and the environments and gameplay look great. However, Sony's marketing strategy for Days Gone has concerned me since they really haven't shown much of a story trailer for the game. Not that we need one, but mostly everything we've seen has been gameplay, and the marketing for the game has been pretty minimal. This trailer was cool, but it was also kind of odd, and it pretty much showed what we've already seen with just more polish. Is this Sony's way of saying that they want us to know that the game is still coming, but they know it's not going to sell big compared to their other exclusives? If you two have seen the trailer, what are your guys' thoughts on it, and do you think the game still looks promising? Thanks for all the great content."
Have you seen the trailer?
I scrubbed through it. I watched it a little bit, and then I'm like, I don't want to see this.
I didn't know about it.
Now, I know that a lot of people haven't. I totally get that. I know that people want to eat up everything. This was the thing with Spider-Man, right? Where Spider-Man really started venturing into the spoiler territory pretty heavily with a lot of shit. People were getting mad about that. Now, Days Gone doesn't have established lore. No one even knows what the fucking game's about, really. So that's not a bad thing. And to his point, we still don't really know what the game's about. But I kind of like that. So I saw this new stuff pop up with the collector's edition information, and I scrubbed through it, and I'm like, I don't want to see any more of this.
Yeah, I don't need to see any more of it.
And that's not an insult. It's because I'm excited.
No, yeah, well, it's also just because, for me, I had a huge issue with the whole Spider-Man thing. I was just really annoyed of just seeing constant. I'm okay with it. I'm interested in it. You got my attention. I'm gonna play it anyway. So I'll see it when I see it. I do though. I don't know, man. I can't shake this gut feeling about this game. There's something weird about it. There's something there tickling my sinuses.
Well, you're talking to what Will Hahn has been saying here in his letter. Do you think the game still looks promising? There is something about it. There definitely is. But what's interesting, and I haven't read anything about it, is that the game was playable to the public at PAX South this past weekend from when we're recording this. So they are going public with the game and allowing people to play it. So they're confident enough for people to feel it. But even then, I wouldn't want to do that. If the game was put before me, I don't know that I'd want to play it. Like, I want to go into this game not really knowing anything about it. And I'm really excited about it. The setting, that Pacific Northwest setting is awesome. I'm super interested, per our point, as long as they handle it properly, how they deal with the motorcycle. Like, my assumption is that the motorcycle might be quiet. Like, you might get upgrades that make it quieter and quieter, right? Like, that would be kind of a cool thing.
Like a Prius?
Well, no, not like a Prius, but the exhaust is often made louder intentionally. You can do things to make the bike quieter. You're never going to make it fully quiet. But if you put it next to a Kawasaki Ninja, and then you put like a chrome covered Harley Davidson next to each other, they sound very different.
Here's what I think. I think the game's going to be really solid. I think the story is not going to be. I feel like the story is going to be really kind of like a B movie kind of thing.
I hope not. Because they have to explain that, right? They have to explain how they're riding, because it's a cool idea. You ride motorcycles around the Pacific Northwest. Neat. Yeah. And I saw a little bit of the footage where he's doing like this hairpin turn on it and stuff. It looks cool.
Yeah.
But the noise thing, unless the clickers are deaf, which is possible.
Maybe, that's also possible. I don't know. We'll see.
But then there's human enemies.
I would love for this to be just like a breakaway hit and just like shock everybody. I would love that. I don't know, man. There's like something clawing away at me on the inside, being like, there's something about this.
The freakers are clawing away at you?
Yeah,
on your inside?
Exactly.
They gotta have, someone in that room had to have had a better name.
That too, like the freaker thing. I don't know. I can't get out of my head the freaker thing.
Yeah.
Just call them zombies. It's fine.
I've known some freakers in my day. You know what I mean?
Whoa, no, not really. You can explain to me afterwards.
Number 7, Overkill's The Walking Dead video game, which was announced way back in the summer of 2014, launched on PC back in November. It has a 52 Metacritic score based on 33 reviews. As already suggested, the game was developed by Overkill Software, a Swedish team best known for its work in the popular Payday series, and was published by fellow Swedish company Starbreeze, a dev team best known for The Darkness, Syndicate, and a few other titles, a dev team that also flexed into publishing, beginning with 2016's Dead by Daylight. Suggestions are that the performance of The Walking Dead may have heavily contributed to Starbreeze's bankruptcy filings, which we recently discussed on this show. In light of the PC game's poor critical reception and commercial performance, Starbreeze released a brief statement noting that the company is, quote, currently evaluating and reviewing the performance of the game on consoles. Starbreeze has decided to postpone the release date from its original February 2019 date. Further information regarding the future release will be announced at a later date, end quote. Now, I saw that 505 Games, I think, was involved in some sort of way in publishing this game on console in the West, maybe just physically. But the game did so poorly on PC that they are maybe indefinitely going to postpone it on console. I wanted to read this out because this is kind of nice. Actually, Starbreeze is in financial trouble. Mm-hmm. The easiest thing that they could have done is to just push this game out and made a little bit of money on it, but it probably would have ruined them in the long term. Yeah. And, Overkill is actually a really well-respected studio. Payday is a very well-respected franchise. So I kind of like this, that they're saying, like, well, it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. Yeah. So thanks for beta testing everything for us PC fucking dorks out there. Saving us from this game.
You're just contempt for PC is amazing. I love it.
Number 8, according to a report from the website The Verge. I don't know why I said the website The Verge. Take-Two, the publishing force behind the 2K brand and the Grand Theft Auto series, among others, is embroiled in an interesting lawsuit concerning Rockstar's use of the Pinkerton Detective Agency name in Red Dead Redemption 2. The fracas began when the real Pinkerton Agency, which is an actual security and detective agency founded in 1850, requested royalties for using the Pinkerton name in the game. The Verge reports that Pinkerton served Take-Two with a cease and desist, packing 2 remedies, a lump sum payment or ongoing royalties. Instead of rolling over, Take-Two has taken a stance that their use of the Pinkerton name and the history behind the agency is protected by the First Amendment, and that Red Dead Redemption 2 is far from the first piece of fiction to openly use the name and anything associated with it. The Verge itself points out that the Pinkertons feature prominently in TV series like Deadwood and the latest BioShock game, BioShock Infinite. It's yet unclear how this legal problem will conclude, though it's probably take some time for it to do so.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I never really thought about how studios or really anybody gets the rights to really say these, because I noticed even when I watched Into the Spider-Verse. Did you see that movie at all?
No.
It's really solid, by the way. I think you would actually like it. But they don't say NYPD, they say PDNY and stuff like that. So it's like, there's surely the NYPD isn't going to sue if they're used in a comic book movie, are they? Probably
I guess not. Maybe the logo or something is
maybe
copyrighted. Because I was thinking about that. Because this is an interesting situation. The company Pinkerton exists. It has a history. And I was reading Pinkerton's point of view in their complaint, and it makes sense. They're like, we're tired of being the bad guys and all this shit. Like, we're a real detective agency. We didn't do anything like is being shown in Red Dead Redemption ever. And I was like, okay, that's fine, but it's old. It's really old. I mean, we're talking about in the game, 1890s. Take-Two has the money, first of all, to just be like, we're not doing this. And we'll just take this. Yeah. But it reminded me a little bit of like weird shit that finds its way into games. Like, I don't know if you remember with The Last of Us, there was a metro map in The Last of Us. I think it was in Boston. And it's like, it shows the Metro Underground. But apparently that is like a trademark thing that someone made. So there's like weird shit like that always happens like behind the scenes. But people are always looking for their money.
It is so weird to me that like that kind of stuff is, you could sue for that. It reminded me of like when I was playing Spider-Man. There's that level where you're in Grand Central and you're like, oh my God, I've never seen Croton Harmon in a video game before. Like, what is that? That's so weird. It's like, it was like the mayor of Croton, like Croton Harmon's going to sue or whatever. Like,
right.
Like what? Especially when it's like stuff that's historically relevant.
Yeah, the only game I remember going out of its way, and I don't want to say it's the only game that did it, but the game that I remember most recently that went out of its way to secure trademarks and imagery trademarks and kind of licensing and rights to use certain things is when Sucker Punch made Infamous Second Son on PS4. I didn't realize at the time that there are certain things in the Seattle skyline, like I think the Space Needle and stuff like that's like a trademarked thing. And so I don't know where the legal boundaries begin and end in these situations, but it seems like Pinkerton might be barking up the wrong tree. For any other reason, then Take-Two would probably just tie this up in court indefinitely until they ran out of legal money. Number 9. This one I know you're going to be very excited about. Power Rangers is getting a fighting game called Power Rangers Battle for the Grid, and it's coming to PS4 this April. It's a digital-only release with a price tag of $19.99, and it's being developed by a team called N-Way. That's N, little n, and then Way. A team that's self-professed to be a mobile and multiplayer-focused studio, with 2013's Chronoblade its best-known game. N-Way already has a Power Rangers game called Legacy Wars available on mobile platforms. Is Power Rangers still a thing?
Yeah, it is.
I was in that weird in-between space where I was a little too old for Power Rangers.
I think, like, when I was a kid, I had Power Rangers toys, but I didn't really watch Power Rangers at all. I just thought they were neat.
It was so weird.
It was very weird.
Like the whole thing, like where they're like setting up the fight and they were like doing all their stances and stuff. Like this is very weird.
It's goofy.
It's very,
and
very campy.
It kind of reminds me of like those martial arts movies also in a weird way because they're just so like over the top and
right. It's all Well, I like how they stitched together, and I didn't know this until I was an adult. That like all of the combat sections were just the Japanese version of the show.
Oh yeah, no, me neither. I didn't know that until like high school,
which is so funny and I guess makes a lot more sense. And kind of like, I don't know.
Maybe that's part of the charm of it.
Yeah. Because I remember, I feel like it came out, I could be wrong about this. I feel like it hit the States in 93, and I think I was going in the 4th grade when I saw it for the first time. G.I. Joe was still around, and I was still like into other things, and I was like, I don't really, this is a little too much for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I was still materializing back then, so.
Number 10, Rocket League is the next major game that has full cross-platform play on PlayStation. Word comes by way of the PlayStation blog, in which Psyonix makes the announcement that Rocket League's cross-play beta is now underway, allowing PS4, Switch, Xbox One, and PC players to play against each other in online modes. So that's pretty cool. That announcement came from my friend Jeremy Dunham, vice president of Psyonix, founder of Podcast Beyond, where I got my start PlayStation podcasting. So that's pretty good news for Rocket League.
Yeah, that's awesome. Building bridges.
Gotta build bridges.
Gotta build bridges.
No matter what Sony feels. And number 11 is a wrap-up. Website Push Square reports that The Occupation from White Paper Games, a game all about a governmental coup, we talked about this a while ago, that game looks fucking cool as hell, is delayed and will now come to PS4 on March 5th. Kotaku reports that JRPG Trails of Cold Steel 3 is coming to Western PS4 sometime this fall, with the interesting wrinkle that NIS and not Xseed is publishing it. That is super interesting. Website Silicon Error reports that side-scrolling RPG Lapis Cross Labyrinth will be coming to PS4 on May 28th, also by way of publisher NIS. Website Gamatsu reports that strange 2D action game Necrosphere Deluxe is coming to PS4 and Vita on January 31st. Action platformer Oniken Unstoppable Edition is coming to PS4 this spring. Castlevania-like Odalus The Dark Call is coming to PS4 this spring. That game looks fucking cool as hell. Fast-moving Xenon Racer is coming to PS4 on March 26th. Open-world RPG Dismantle, with a Y, is coming to PS4 at some undetermined point in the future. And stealth game Intruders Hide and Seek is coming to PS4 on February 13th. And finally, Hitman Studio IO Interactive is opening a new IO studio in Malmo, Sweden, which will work on both Hitman franchises and new IP alike.
That's cool.
If you hate going out to buy clothes like I do, I may just have a solution that's right up your alley. Stitch Fix is an online personal styling service that basically does all of the work for you. All you do is go to stitchfix.com, tell them about yourself and your style, and boom, you get 5 handpicked items delivered directly to your door. Then you grab what you like, send back anything that you don't, and only get charged for what you decide to keep. You can schedule shipments at your leisure too, so you can get clothes regularly or only when you really need them. I recently signed up for Stitch Fix and found the process both easy and insanely thorough. I told them about my body type, including my burger-filled gut, what kind of clothes I was looking for, my budget, and even got shown extensive examples of clothing that I could choose between. And soon a stylist on their end will go through all the data and send me what they think I'd like, whether it's a pair of jeans or slacks, a button-down, a blazer, some shoes, or something else entirely. Once I go through everything, I can then send anything I don't care for back with free shipping. Indeed, if I opt to send it all back, I only pay a $20 styling fee, a fee which is absorbed by any item you keep. If you want to try Stitch Fix for yourself, head to stitchfix.com/sacred to score an additional 25% off a full box of 5 items. That's stitchfix.com/sacred, stitchfix.com/sacred. Chris, let's get into the new game releases, shall we? There aren't that many this week.
Yeah, let's do it.
Would you like to begin or would you like to go second?
I'll start off.
Okay.
A Fisherman's Tale comes to PSVR. Bend and twist reality in A Fisherman's Tale, the mind-bending VR puzzle adventure game in which being turned upside down and inside out is not merely a play on words.
I like getting turned upside down and inside out, you know what I mean?
So you literally get turned inside out in this fishing VR game?
I don't know. It's A Fisherman's Tale. Maybe it's just a story being told by a fisherman and the fish have nothing to do with it. The next one is At Sundown Shots in the Dark comes to PS4. At Sundown Shots in the Dark is a stealth-driven, top-down multiplayer shooter in which up to 4 players compete in both online and local deathmatch. Only the best will dominate each round and survive the ultimate challenge to rise to the top at sundown.
I met these guys at PAX.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, they were really cool people. It looks neat.
Cool.
Future Grind comes to PS4. Grab your bike and hit the rails in Future Grind, a stylish stunt racer all about tricks, skill, and speed. Think what you got what it takes, test your limits while grinding to...
You're really breaking down hard on this one.
I am, yeah.
It's like watching
test
the
your
computer
limits while
shut down.
grinding to the bass-pounding beats of an original soundtrack by Big Nick.
Big Nick!
Everybody knows Big Nick.
Heroes Trials comes to PS4 and Vita. After the banishing of the previous defender of your island, the community needs new heroes. The long trainings of siblings Elia and Zol take them to the last trials to become the new local guardians. Rising to the top will not be an easy feat. No idea what that game's about.
Jack Quest, Tale of the Sword comes to PS4. A fast-paced fantasy action platformer with quick combat and steady progression. Jack Quest guides players through a single interconnected world full of secrets, collectible gems, and hidden challenges.
Whoa. Realm Royale comes to PS4. Be the last champion standing in Realm Royale. Choose a class, then loot deadly weapons and powerful abilities to create your own champion. Explore a fantasy world from horseback and craft gear-changing legendary gear. I'm going to pass on that.
Resident Evil 2 Remake comes to PS4. It's actually called Remake?
No. I'm just making sure that people know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
They're just calling it Resident Evil 2, but there already exists a Resident Evil 2.
Oh man, that's odd. I don't know how I feel about that from a name standpoint.
So I'm just trying to be clear.
Comes to PS4. A deadly virus engulfs the residents of Raccoon City in September of 1998, plunging the city into chaos as flesh-eating zombies roam the streets for survivors. An unparalleled adrenaline rush, gripping storyline, and unimaginable horrors await you. Witness the return of Resident Evil 2. I'm excited about this.
That was very good. Senran Kagura Burst Renewal comes to PS4.
This is why I went first, by the way.
Okay, fair enough. You counted. Experience the original Senran Kagura Burst like never before. Tackle the classic ninja brawler from a whole new perspective in gorgeous fluid HD with new features and mechanics throughout. And there's an exclamation point at the end. That's why I screamed it.
Oh, perfect. Wander Song comes to PS4, a musical adventure where you use singing to save the world. Play as a silly bard. Play as a silly bard who embarks on a globe-trotting journey to learn about the mysterious Earth Song, said to prevent the universe's imminent end. It's up to you to sing your songs, unlock the world's secrets, and make new friends.
I don't want any more friends. I have enough friends.
You really?
I really don't have that many friends, to be honest.
You don't want to sing to the world and make friends?
It's like the last thing in the world I want to do is sing and
It does sound
friends.
specifically like a defunct activity.
That's all the games, which is surprising.
Yeah,
I think
actually a short drop.
Yeah, I think a lot of people or a lot of publishers maybe are avoiding Resident Evil, which is wise. We haven't gotten our copies yet, but I assume we'll get them any minute now, and I'm looking forward to playing it. So we'll have information on that for you guys next week. I was going to do a review, but I don't think we're going to get it in time for me to do a review, so we'll maybe do a Let's Play or something like that as well for it. I'm really excited to play it. Chris, I have 9 final reader inquiries, and we call them reader inquiries even though no one's reading the show. They're listening to it. Yeah. So I figure we should just get into it and see where they take us. Remember, again, supporting us on Patreon is the way you submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to the show. Kamal Hans wrote in, said, "Hey, Chris and Colin. This semester, I only took 2 classes, so I have more free time, most of which I spend on the PS4. Lately, however, after finishing hours of a gaming session, I feel like I wasted the day. The next day, I do the same. Have either of you guys experienced this feeling? What can I do to break this cycle?" Chris, do you feel like when you go into gaming sessions, what I'm going to call a gaming sesh, that you are wasting your time?
I feel guilty that I'm not working sometimes. But then I remember that, I do a podcast. I can play games and work. But also, man, it doesn't feel like work because I'm enjoying it. So is it really work? I don't know. I'm psychotic.
Right. You're a little crazy.
So that's the neurotic cycle that I get trapped into. But it's definitely hard to feel like, especially because a lot of games now are like very demanding of your time. It is kind of difficult to feel like you're not wasting time. It's a weird thing. And it's even my job too. So it's like, if I'm feeling it, I can imagine.
It's hard to silo the different things that you need to do in your life or feel like you want to do. No one needs to play video games. That's not something anyone needs to do. But we like to do it and we enjoy doing it. So I try to embrace it. You guys can look at my PS4 and look at my trophy. I play a lot of video games. And it's, something that I enjoy doing, but I try to, read every day. I try to maybe go for a walk with the dog if I can. I try to watch a television show or eat a meal or something. So I'm not saying no one does that when they play games. What I'm saying is that just make it a part of your routine, and I think you'll feel less guilty about it. I have no problem sitting there for 12 hours and playing a video game. I just don't want to do that all day. And because I run my own business like you do, I never have a day where I can just chill. I always have to do something. There's always something to be done.
That's the thing.
Now, I often use video games to procrastinate a little bit, but I have an uncanny ability, I think, of getting things done in time, of working it out in my mind. I never understood the person, and I've never been like this where I just waste a whole day doing nothing. When people are I didn't do anything today. I'm like, you didn't do anything? I want to manufacture time to do something just fun, whether it's reading a book or playing a game or whatever. Kamal, to your question, we have experienced this, but if you're enjoying it and you're tending to your duties as a student here, and if you're going to work or doing whatever, doing your work, then there's nothing to feel guilty about. Now, if you stop going to your classes, if you're not paying your bills and you're bordering on destitution, then you should probably worry about that. But otherwise, embrace it. Lean into it. Escapism is good sometimes. Mark Zebro Jr., who will now only be known as Junior, wrote into us and said, "Hello, Colin and Chris. I wanted to know your thoughts about developer walkthroughs, commentaries, or tours in games. I played a number of games in the past that feature this mechanic, such as Left 4 Dead, which I saw you talking about recently.
Yeah.
Grim Fandango and Gone Home, that will have you hit a prompt to hear audio from the developers in game. I personally enjoyed this feature and wanted to know your guys' thoughts on it. Thank you and have a good day." Do you ever use these? I've never actually used them.
I do sometimes, because I really like hearing director commentaries. When I was a kid and I only had the DVD of Spider-Man 2 and a couple seasons of Seinfeld, I would watch those every day while I was doing stuff, but I would also then turn on the commentaries just to get some insight. I think it's interesting, and I think the way that Valve in particular did it with even Portal 2 and Left 4 Dead was actually super fascinating because you got to go through the game, like actually like go through the levels and actually hit points of interest and hear what people had to say about that specific point of interest, as opposed to just like listening to like a linear kind of slice of audio of people talking about generally what it was like. I think it's really cool. I wish more games had it. I think I would definitely check those modes out if more games offered them. But to my knowledge, really, it's only the Valve games that I've seen do it.
Yeah, Fulbright does it too. As you said, Gone Home does it. And I think Tacoma did it as well. And I might have listened to a little bit of Gone Homes because the game is so small, but it's also been a long time, so I don't know. That kind of stuff's cool that it exists. That's like a next step kind of thing where there are developers doing certain things. I was talking to my girlfriend Erin about this recently, where it's cool that, for instance, this is an ancillary thing, but it's cool that developers are taking the time now to cater towards people with disabilities in such a way that they can play the game effectively. I know that Naughty Dog always tells this story about Uncharted 3, I think, where there's this thing where you have to press the X button really quick and like someone couldn't beat it. Like they literally couldn't play it even on easy because they had to get someone else to do it for them. And so they have all these little things that they can kind of piece together so that they can play it effectively. This is just another like garner more information, more value, more, whatever. Pleasure out of it, which is cool.
It's also the mark of a very finished game.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely a mode that they had to take time to put into it. And every game that I've seen that has it hasn't really had any problems whatsoever. Left 4 Dead was a very solid game. Portal isn't particularly unpolished at all. I doubt you're going to see a commentary mode on, Battlefront 2 or like Battlefront 3 or whatever the hell.
This is where we decided to put the loot box.
Yeah, exactly. Now you can pay for them.
Kyle Day wrote into us on Patreon and said, "Hey, Colin and Chris, top of the muffin to you!"
Oh my God.
Which is, of course, a great Seinfeld reference. With RE2 Remake about to come out, what are your thoughts on how Capcom will or should move forward with the Resident Evil franchise? I, for one, would love to see RE8 be next, going back to an over-the-shoulder third-person perspective. I may be in the minority that didn't love RE7's first-person perspective. So what say you? RE8, RE3, or 4 Remake, or something else? Thanks for the great weekly content, guys. I don't know, man. I think you have to accept that they're building towards Resident Evil 4 Remake, which I think is going to be massive. Because Resident Evil 4 is a really fantastic game. Now, I got to be honest with you, though, Chris. I went and played Resident Evil 4 on PS3 like a few months ago. I broke my PS3 out. I updated it for 5 hours and whatever else.
As one does.
It was fucking horrifying, by the way. Just a horrifying experience using a PS3. I could have bought, I think, RE4 on PS4, but I'm too cheap. I was like, I have it on PS3. I'm just going to download. And we don't play games like this anymore. That's why RE4 on Wii, I think a lot of people consider that to be the best version of the game. I actually agree because you're just pointing. It actually is one of the games that really works well on Wii. But I think that it's all building and culminating towards this. Now, Resident Evil, the first remake was made a long time ago. Remake on GameCube came out, I think, in 2003. So we're having Remake 2 come out in 2019, so there's a 16-year gap there.
A little bit, yeah, it's a bit much.
But they put Resident Evil 0, kind of re-release these things on new consoles. And I think that it's got to be building in some vertical at Capcom towards a Resident Evil 4 remake because that is the most popular Resident Evil game. But I also think Resident Evil 8 is inevitable. Now, Resident Evil 7 sold really well and did critically very well. So I think you're going to be sadly mistaken if you think the perspective is going to change. I actually think the first-person perspective was great. And because of the lack of tank controls and all that, I think that it's just modern. So that's what I would want to see out of it. But what do you think? Where do you think they go from here? You played RE7, right?
A little bit of it. I got to admit,
I loved it.
I wasn't super grabbed by it. It might have just caught me at a wrong time. Because I'm a very first-person shooter-oriented person. So when I'm in a first-person perspective, I expect to have a certain level of control over my character that I just didn't have in Resident Evil 7. It just kept nagging at me. That's a game that I know is good. Like, I know it's objectively... Everybody I have spoken to says they love it. I like parts of it. But I don't know, when I was playing it, I just couldn't get this nagging feeling out of my head that why am I so slow? Why am I so painfully slow in this situation where I know if I was here in first person, I would absolutely be sprinting like a madman?
It's true because Resident Evil always has this weird control scheme that adds to the fear by making it not playable the way it should be, which is kind of a design flaw in a way.
Well, part of that is also because you feel like you're watching someone. Like the third-person perspective kind of gives it that feeling where it's like you're not really that character. You're playing as, Chris Redfield or whoever it is you're playing at, Jill Valentine. You're playing as this person. So you're kind of watching a horror movie with a character that you're trying to help out of a situation. Whereas from a first-person perspective, I feel like I'm that person. But when I feel like I can't control the way I want to, that's a different thing to me. I don't know why I'm okay with it in classic Resident Evil versus a first-person perspective, but I never quite got over it. Maybe I'll go back and play it again. Maybe I just had it at the wrong time, but it really bothered me.
By the way, someone is banging on the wall.
Yeah, what
you
the hell
guys
is
hear
that? And it's coming from every direction. It's coming from the wall and the floor at the same time. It's
I don't know. We're getting attacked.
Yeah. Oh well.
But no, you're absolutely right in the sense that there was something a little off about the way the game felt. But I always felt like Resident Evil always put you at a disadvantage. Like, the game doesn't control properly because that's what adds to the fear. It's just like tank controls back in the day. Like, it's just the solution. It's maybe not an effective solution, but it does heighten the fear aspect of the survival horror that otherwise wouldn't be present.
I understand why they did it, but like to me, I just think it works better in a third-person perspective than a first-person perspective because the disconnect is too much for me. But maybe I'll go back and play it. I should, actually.
You should. I heard it's really great in PSVR, and I always told myself that if I went back, I would play it in PSVR this time. So
yeah.
And you have a PSVR because I bought you one. Jason Price wrote in and said, "Hey, fellas, I've heard Colin share his opinion about not pre-ordering games, and there are a lot of people who share the same sentiment. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't understand the opinion. Here in Canada, games are now $79 Canadian. Amazon and Best Buy hold E3 sales where you can pre-order games shown at E3 and receive discounts. This year, I snagged Spider-Man and God of War for $49 Canadian and also have Days Gone and Death Stranding locked in at that price as well. I can cancel at any time before shipping at no cost." You say do pre-ordering really does benefit me. I don't know what that means. As the new popular meme says, change my mind. Have a good week, guys. Well, Jason, first of all, games are more expensive in Canada because your dollar is weaker. So that's important to note. You're not paying $79 American. And I don't mean that in any sort of derogatory way. You're not paying $79 in the United States money. You're saying $79 in Canadian money, which is weaker. So obviously there's going to be some sort of difference there. And that's unfortunate. You know, there's always a weird fluctuation with Canadian money. Yeah. This is the reason, of course, the Winnipeg Jets and the Quebec Nordiques disappeared in the 90s, Chris, and the NHL, as you know, because they couldn't afford to pay their players. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, famous.
Now, these pre-order bonuses existed here. I don't think they do anymore. I think someone got rid of it, like Best Buy or someone got rid of them. But no, here's the reason I'm against pre-ordering. Because I know people that work in publishing. I know a lot of people that work in games. And they look at those numbers and they make decisions based on how strong or weak they are. And if you don't pre-order games, especially early, then they make it more enticing for you to do it later. You know? So if you're like all in on a game and they're already showing 500,000 pre-orders for the game, they don't have to do anything. They're already selling 500,000 copies of the game. And so I just think that people need to look at it through more of the lens of the consumer, where make them earn your money. Like, what are you really pre-ordering? Like, I understand that the price is cheaper, but you're pre-ordering something that is going to be delivered later that can be purchased digitally in infinite supply.
Yeah, and they're not going to run out.
Right. It's impossible for them to run out now, unless you want physical games, right?
And even then, you still have a lot. Like, unless you're getting like a collector's edition. And even then, it's like, I've gotten collector's edition 10 years later. Like, for real. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can wait.
I don't know. I'm not trying to judge anyone. You got to do what you got to do. Certainly the money savings is real. And if you're saving $10 or $20 on a game, that's fantastic. I would also like to do that. And I've done that in the past. I've pre-ordered games and I've ordered games online.
Yeah, me too.
And I think, by the way, pre-ordering hardware is very wise. Like when PS5 is announced, you should absolutely, if you have the money, pre-order it immediately.
That's a different thing.
Yeah.
You can't download a console.
Right, exactly. And I pre-ordered my PS4 the moment that they allowed the pre-orders to be announced. And I was still going to get one from IGN at the time too. So you just want to have that handled. So I'm not judging you. I just think that pre-ordering is basically giving the publisher money before anything happened. Before anything happened. You're already paying them. And I just don't understand, you know, obviously you're paying them and then getting the game in any situation. But you're paying them like a year out.
Yeah, and you can always make that decision to yourself. Like there are games that I know, like, I'm getting that. Like I don't need to see anything about it. Like, because there are games that I'm just like a huge fan of, and I'm like, I want to see it where this goes. I don't necessarily care that I haven't seen anything about it. But it doesn't mean I have to necessarily put money down on it now.
Right.
And show them that they have my money.
Right,
like
exactly.
You know, it's better to just kind of wait and then just decide whether or not you want to buy it when it's closer. It just seems like it makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I don't really see the point. But, you know, it's worth noting, you can, when you pre-order games online, and Jason brought this up in his letter, you're not paying for it, but the retailer is. So money is being exchanged. Like the numbers are being shared. And it's giving them optical looks into how things are doing. I just think you want to keep publishers a little more on their toes, if you're asking me. Because I think you get better products and more nimble reactions to things out of them when they don't know if they're going to get your money.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think that's more exciting. Kenny Roberts wrote into us and said, "Hey, Colin and Chris, first off, I just wanted to say I've been a fan since the Beyond days, and I have discovered this gem, and I have just discovered this gem of a podcast recently. It's awesome to hear that PlayStation passion again. Thank you, Kenny, and welcome." Lola's scratching at the door. I'm sorry about that. That's a rarity for her. I wonder what her problem is. For my question, I wanted to talk about an obscure title many have not heard about called PlayStation Home. Now, this game may have gotten a lot of flack when it was available, but I certainly saw potential in it. I thought it was a great idea by Sony to have an interactive social space where any and everybody could talk about and celebrate all things PlayStation for a free price. I also thought the game hubs were a cool aspect to promote PS games, such as Uncharted, with mini games and accessories for your avatar and virtual living spaces. In my opinion, the biggest flaw with PlayStation Home was the frame drops and agonizing load times, all which can now be greatly improved with the hardware nowadays. So my question is, do you guys think PlayStation would attempt anything like this again? Thanks and keep up the amazing work. I will say this, Chris, I think PlayStation Home was way ahead of its time for all of its foibles and for all of its blemishes.
I think in a lot of ways it was, but I feel like it was ahead of its time in a way that was probably a bit too optimistic for its own good. You know, social spaces have been kind of more common now with the rise of like MMO, FPS light games like Destiny 2 is a big thing. Even one of the Call of Duty games recently had a social space, which like baffled me. World War II had a social space on Normandy Beach or something. It was like
nothing social like that.
Yeah, nothing social like Normandy Beach. And I think the idea is definitely something that was, you know, ahead of its time. But I think the implementation of it as just kind of like a hub and a social space and a way to navigate a menu in a virtual space, I don't see that being ever revitalized at all, especially because I think it was more novel back during those times because it was a console experience with a social space where people really hadn't seen that before. It was like new and interesting. But anybody over on Xbox Live who'd been talking to each other on the internet or through video games for several years at this point, by the time Home came out, knows that you don't want to spend a lot of time with these people. You want to get in the game and get out. You don't want to be a social space is fun in theory, I think.
Yeah, I think you put it well. I don't know that it would make a lot of sense. It was very Second Life-like.
Yeah.
And people that don't know, Second Life is this thing I think still going on. It's like there's actually a really interesting documentary about Second Life I watched a few years ago, which is super interesting about the people that make money on it and stuff like that.
Is it the one that's like made entirely in it?
No.
There's one that's made entirely in Second Life.
Oh, that's too much for me.
Yeah,
that's a little too much for me. But no, this one was about how there's these people that make money like making their clothes and furniture and stuff. Like they make like a fortune. To me, yeah, I think it's a relic of another time. I think that it was ahead of its time in a lot of ways, but I think the functionality was ahead of its time. And I think that they've done that already with communities on PlayStation Network. And, you know, it's cool. When you're playing a game, you can see who else on your friends list or who's following you is playing a game. You could jump right into their games and stuff. Isn't that kind of what you're looking for at the end of the day anyway? So
yeah.
I feel like
we've essentially got the function of PlayStation Home without all the kind of stupid trivialities of it.
Yeah, the awkward animations.
Yeah, got to walk over to my games list. Like, what is happening?
Seems quite cumbersome.
I think it's more novelty than anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the Xbox avatars. It's like, you don't need this. This adds nothing.
No, I remember when they added trophies to Home, I think, and that got some people more involved in it. But I never wanted to play. I never downloaded it. I used to mess around with it sometimes at work, but I never downloaded it myself. Jacob Fauzi, F-A-W-Z-I, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, wrote in and said, "Hi, Colin and Chris. With THQ Nordic buying all of these seemingly unusual IP, do you think they could have some kind of Moneyball-esque formula propelling these purchases? Could they simply be looking for cheap IP that have the potential to get on base? This is the only thing I can think of that would explain their nonsensical purchasing habits. Would love to hear your thoughts." I loved this question, Jacob. Do you know Moneyball? Are you familiar with this?
I'm aware of the film. I have not seen it, though.
Okay, so Moneyball, for people that don't know, started actually as a book. Great book.
It's Jonah Hill, isn't it, in that movie?
Yeah, Jonah Hill's in the
weird cast.
Moneyball started as, it was a great book. I actually don't know that I ever saw the film. I did read the book though. It's about the Oakland A's and who are a baseball team and how in a salary capless league like the MLB where anyone can spend whatever they want, they had to figure out ways in a small market with not a lot of money to find players. They did this with advanced analytics and things, something called sabermetrics and all this kind of stuff. And now this is all in every sport. Like NFL is very much statistically driven in new ways. The NHL uses this thing called Corsi and possession and all this stuff to judge things. In other words, instead of judging a player by his goals and assists in hockey, you judge him by his possession, by his plus minus, by all these kinds of things. So I'm only explaining that so people that know what Moneyball is. It's basically a way of GMing a team without just throwing money around. And he's basically Jacob's asking, is THQ Nordic doing something similar where they're finding these undervalued things, just like the A's would find undervalued players in the draft? And the answer is maybe. But I just, to the point I made last week when they, whatever fucking adventure game that they probably acquired, I really think they're buying the shit for nothing. Like, I think they're buying the shit for literally nothing. Like, that IP, $50,000. That's my guess, 50 grand to get that IP and the rights to the old game. It's like, at that point, why not? If you're a huge corporation with backing, why not just go buy as much shit as you can? If they're literally spending $50,000 here, $100,000 there, $500,000 here, $10,000 here, then before you know it, they do have quite the catalog of games they can go back to. And did they really spend anything? If one of them hits, then they make their money back. So that's my theory on it. But I don't know.
I think it's a valid theory. I can't really argue against it because we have no insight as to what the hell they're doing. It could be literally anything at this point.
I would love to speak to them. And I'll reiterate, if anyone at that publisher listens to this, and maybe you do, I would love to talk to you about what you're doing.
Yeah, we're deeply curious.
I'm super interested, so we'll see. 3 more questions, though, Chris, to get through before the end of today's episode of Sacred Symbols.
Sure thing.
Matthew Redmond wrote into us and said, hey, Colin and Chris, the PS4's user interface operating system is vastly different from the PS3's XMB, and initially, we had to wait a long time to see rather simple features such as themes and external hard drive support come to the system when the previous generation already had these things. Do you think the PS5 is going to start back at square one, or will it be a continuation of the PS4's OS? It would be frustrating to have to wait for features my PS3 could do and that my PS4 couldn't. I'm looking at you, PS1 Classics. Thanks for everything, guys. This is an interesting one, too. Because Sony, Chris, for a while, seemed to be making their electronics, specifically their TVs, their DVD players, Blu-ray players, and PlayStation 3, all have a cross-media bar. I don't know if people remember that. They all had like a very similar setup. And then they abandoned that, I guess, at some point. I like the PS4's UI a lot, and I would like to see the UI just move faster, but be on the new console. But my assumption is that it's going to be a completely different interface.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think we're just kind of in this weird point now with consoles where I think what we're going to see with the PS5 and whatever the next Xbox is we're just going to see the Xbox One X but stronger and the PS4 Pro but stronger. I think they want to keep as much consistency between purchases, especially now that, I feel like it's harder to sell people on a new console now. For some reason, I feel like it was easier back in 2013 where there was like this promise of new technology. But right now, I can't even think of where technology could go, really. Because games have looked fantastic for the last 10 years. I feel like they're going to need to lure you in with some sense of familiarity.
I'm torn on it, though, because on one hand, I'd like to see the same continuation. You just know immediately how to use it. It feels right. It feels good. But if you're buying a new console, don't you have an expectation that you're going to get a new experience? It's not quite like buying like an iPhone and the iOS is the same. It's a little different.
It is definitely a little different. I have that's what's so exciting about this period of time, because I genuinely have no idea what route either of these companies are going to go. Because it does feel like, history dictates we're going to get a new console with a new user interface, with a new controller that doesn't work on previous consoles and all that. That's what history dictates. But, tech has changed pretty significantly in the last decade. And I wonder, even just consoles, like putting out a more powerful PS4, like that hasn't really happened before. Like they've never put out a stronger PS2. I think we're in an interesting time, and I'm not sure it's as clear-cut as we think it is.
There's like 2 examples. Like they put out the vanilla PS4 trying to strip things out of it to make it cheaper, and then they release a PS4 that's more expensive, which is kind of wild when you think about it. That's not something that usually happens. All right, 2 more questions. The second to last one is from Tenny Cootie, who says, hey, Colin and Chris, proud to finally be a patron of this endeavor. Thank you so much, Tenny Cootie. On to my question. We know that Sony has been intent on killing the Vita since 2012, most recently with not allocating enough physical cartridges to fulfill demand and the looming death of the PS Plus support. This got me wondering as to when or if we will see the Vita lose access to the PlayStation Store altogether, and what you have installed on your overpriced memory card is all you'll have. This happened to the Wii in 2017, I believe, and while I can't imagine it's costing Sony much to keep the store open, we all know that they've had a gun to its head since it's launched. So yeah, when does the PS Vita lose access to the store? This is interesting because I don't know if they're ever really going to lose access to the store. I don't see any reason. I think PSP still has full access to this PlayStation Store. I'm sure one day you're not going to be able to access the internet on PS Vita, but
yeah,
I bet you it's 10 years away or more.
Yeah, I would probably agree. If the PSP can access it, there's no reason to assume that the Vita would be dead.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, and I know, and there's a lot of fear in our audience with this. You can just tell by the questions we get and the questions that I read that I don't want to use. There's a lot of fear of like losing access to the digital games, and I totally get that. But how much is it really going to cost them to employ 1 or 2 people to just watch over this store for like a while? People are still buying games on it, and I don't think they can abandon it. PS3 still has access to the PlayStation Store. Obviously, full access to the PlayStation Store came out in 2006. So I don't know. I don't think you should worry about it. I think we're going to be okay. Chris, the final question comes from Josh Bailey, who is also a hockey player, so I don't know if this is him. It says, hey, Chris and Colin. The question is mostly for Colin, but Chris, please chime in with any insight you may have.
Sure.
Colin, you have stated several times that for the PS5 to have backwards compatibility with PS4, it must retain the touchpad. However, could the backwards compatibility not extend to the controller hardware as well? I can't think of any reasons on a technical basis that would prevent the PS4 from working on PS5, short of Sony just refusing to make the drivers. Could you see a scenario where the PS5 controller does not have the touchpad at all, and PS4 backwards compatibility for play must utilize the DS4? And if by the grace of God and the universe we can play PS1 through PS3 games on PS5, could you see the controller support extending to DS3 as well? So we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to be clear about what I mean by this. First of all, the DualShock 4 works on PS3. So there's going to be a way for you probably to use the controller on it. The question is, Chris, is on PS5, if you go buy a PS5, is the elegant solution that, yeah, you can play your PS4 games, you have to use your PS4 controller? The answer is no, that's not an elegant solution. You have to give a person a way to play everything on that console with what the console comes with without having to have any access to anything else. Otherwise, you're just locking you're siloing off that entire ecosystem again, this way by hardware instead of by software access. So that's my problem with it. Yeah, that will probably be a solution, but that is not the solution because it doesn't make any sense. And at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense.
No, I agree. I'm not convinced that they couldn't just come out with a new controller for the PS5 that doesn't have a touchpad on it. I think the select button coming back would just probably automatically fulfill any specific movement that touchpad would require for PS4. I don't see any reason why that couldn't be the case. But at the same time, they do seem to be a company that doesn't really fluctuate their designs too much. And I think that maybe the PS5 will probably have a touchpad.
Yeah, you would have to assume so. I'm looking at the solution being the easiest for the newest consumer. Having backwards compatibility with PS4's PSN, for instance, and being able to download the games is great. But if you're then telling that person, in other words, you're selling the console saying like it's backwards compatible, but you have to have the old hardware, basically. It's like, well, that's not really full backwards compatibility then. I need to go buy a DualShock 4, or I need to go take my DualShock 4 out. That's a solution, but that's not the solution. So I'm looking at something that will allow people to, it's like having a Switch, and then on the NES Virtual Console, they're like, oh, you need your NES controller. But yeah, you can download the games on Switch, but you need another controller. It's like, no, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like I have a Switch, so I'm going to play it on the Switch with the Switch.
No, exactly.
And so I look at it a similar way. It's cool to have other solutions, and that should be one of the solutions, but it can't be the solution. That's my opinion. We're going to find out soon enough.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I hope they get rid of that options button. Or what? Not the options button, the share button.
Yeah,
I hate that button.
Yeah,
I hate it.
I hate it too. It's just a waste.
Like when I first got the PS4, I kept hitting it accidentally, and it was just like a nightmare. I was like, please stop.
Yeah, because then it pulls up the shit, and it stops your game. And
yeah, it was a nightmare.
The whole thing. Chris, that's all I have for this episode of Sacred Symbols.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Episode 30. It was a good one. I appreciate all of you guys out there supporting us as we make Tuesdays great again, or Fridays if you listen on free feeds. Remember, you can get every episode of Sacred Symbols 3 days early and ad-free by supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. That is the way also you can submit questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to the show, get exclusive content, Q&As, etc., and so on. We appreciate you. Remember, we're driving towards 5,500 cumulative patrons on CLS's Patreon. If we get to that point and we can sustain it, we'll start recording these shows on video as opposed to just doing them in audio. In the meantime, we will, of course, be doing our Let's Plays beginning next month, 1 or 2 a month, which we're really excited about, which will live on SideQuest's YouTube channel. And I should also throw in here before I leave that I'm going to start putting random episodes every so often of Fireside Chats or Knockback onto the Sacred Symbols feed. Not just episodes, any episode. Episodes that make sense to this audience. And I've written down a few episodes that I just want to play through here as special episodes in case you haven't heard them or listened to them. So episodes about like Metal Gear Solid and the PS1 and stuff. I think that will be very relevant to you guys. So look for those rolling out in the next couple weeks. They won't replace the normal episodes. They'll be supplemental episodes like our spoiler casts. And I think the next spoiler cast we'll probably do will either be for Metro Exodus or maybe just for Days Gone. Yeah. I assume. I don't think there's anything really story driven that will be required before then, but we'll see. I know you guys enjoyed the spoiler cast that we did for Spider-Man and for Red Dead Redemption, so we are keeping an eye out for that. Chris, do you have any closing comments before we leave?
No. Hopefully by next time I'll get whatever the hell this is sorted out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I feel like there's a goblin like tap dancing in my sinuses, like suckling at my synapses.
Maybe it'll be dead by the next time.
I mean, maybe.
Convene.
Maybe, as we discussed last time, there's plenty of Chris's.
Yeah, there are. There's lots of Chris's.
There's like millions probably on this block.
Well, we wish you well. Rest up. Enjoy your gaming and whatnot. Enjoy Tom Sweeney, who's this gentleman that I don't really know.
No one can enjoy Tom Sweeney.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough. We appreciate all of you out there. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is fan-supported over at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and I want to thank you from the very bottom of my heart for your incredible kindness and generosity. CJ Anderson, Morgan Ashley, Ethan Barbie, Sean Battershaw, Martin Beck, Fred Bentz, Michael Betts, Eric Bishop, David Blodel, Mark Boggio, Barrett Boswell, Spencer Brand, Lennon Brixey, Matthew Brousseau, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Dylan Burns, Chris Buston, Alex Cabrera, Brian Cacciatolo, Will Caldwell, Luis Cancato, Patrick Harper, William O'Carroll, Brian Chan, Travis Chandler, Sean Chandler, David Chestnut, Simon Conception Jr., Brad Cooley, Cutter Crow, Nick Cummings, Daniel Diamore, Daniel Delanikos, Mitchell Durkash, Martha Emery, Joe Finelli, Eric Finkenbeiner, Stefano Fantana, Fodios Frank, Mangos, Connor Gajian, Alexander Gates, Michael Gates, Salem Ghanem El Ghanem, Toothless Gibbon, Daniel Glassford, Tyler Goodwin, Josh Gravelick, Miranda Grubba, Andres Guzman, Caleb Hager, Tyler Harris, Kyle Hagel, Asa Haas, Azan Isa El Ricey, Josh Yeager, Justin Yeager, Greg Julips, Anton K, Jeremy Key, James Kinslow III, Ryan R. Kitreg, Christian Larson, Jackson Lastiqua, Donald Laws, Joe Lawson, Don Q. Lee, Ashlyn Lee, Patrick Leslie, Dustin Lewis, Keith Adrian Lewis, Chad Lewis, Mark Liberto, Aaron Litwiller, Lewin Ray Loper, Colin Love, Josh M., Ryan T. Mandel, Peter Mark, Nicholas Mask, Joe McPartlin, Wyatt McVeigh, Dennis Meinchin, Andrew Mendoza, Christopher Middling, Albert Miranda, Patrick Malloy, Betty Ann Moriarty, Abe Mukhtar, Brian Nietzsche, Josh Netzel, Adam Nix, George Anthony Nunez, Brian Ott, Israel Petrico, Jorge Palomino, Todd Paxton, Brendan Peavy, Marius S. Peterson, Enrique Perez, James Perrone, Eric A. Peterson, Jason Pettit, Matthew Plaster, Lawrence F. Prokop, John Quinn, Michael Renner, Peter Reynolds, Jonathan Rice, Toby D. Riebenschneider, Austin Riley, Petro Rose, A.G. Rowe, John Schultz, Chris Schaefer, Michael Shanholtz, Toby Shootman, Glendon Cole Simper, Joshua Smallwood, John Tabanillo, Ahmad Tamar, Joseph Thayer, Ben Thompson, Carl Tolman, Tam Tran, Adam Van Kuren, Michael Vecchio, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Mike Wayne, Tyler Woodall, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Casual Misfits Gaming, Supershot ST, Wyatt Henry, Throw 7, Infinite, Mad Mock Media, Mubarak, Sticks and Crits, Richter 86, That Rescue Guy, Andrew, Ian, Dav 9834, Titus Rex, Donk 2015, Gavin, and Random Guy Radio. Lola's been scratching at the door, which she almost never does. She has done it in the past.
Yeah.
I think she's shaking. I think she loves Chris so much that I'm just going to let her sit with me for a little while. And
she is quite...
Why are you shaking? Are you excited? Are you excited? All right, we have
you gotta watch those mouth noises, Lola.
I know, the mouth noises are too much. We already edit out all the mouth noises as it is, or as many as we can. Oh, all right. No, you can't.